It is overtime here at Old Favorite Friday, and we are continuing the conversation about Duchesse de Bourgogne. Now listen, I want to say that I was terrified about because I've always seen this and pronounced it only a few different times over the years. So I went to Google, and that is how Google told me to pronounce it. And Google's never been wrong before. So Duchesse de Bourgogne, they said, was the American pronunciation of this beer. I'm sure someone's going to tell me that I'm wrong. That's fine, I'll own it. But this is an incredible sour beer. And Ralph, you and I are actually about to leave to head to an event at Ellipsis Brewing. It's a big sour event. It's their Fruit Punch Project release. The entire event is based around sours, mostly smoothie sours, the modern day sours. This is the antithesis of this. I didn't plan this. I should say I did. I didn't. But go ahead and talk about Duchesse.
Yeah, so I personally love this beer. Back for a while, I went into a whole Belgian sour craze where I was getting like this, Liefmans, Litteman, just trying to find Rodenbach, anything I could. And it's just, this is a great example of that balance between acidity and fruit character. Because, you know, a lot of the times, especially like you said now with the new fruit kind of smoothie style, people see something like this and they get a little intimidated, like, oh, it might be too much. But I think if you're into any kind of sours, I think this is a great, it's a complex sour for, you know, people who've been drinking, but it's entry level enough where I think it's just such a great beer to go to.
The thing that I haven't had this beer in a while, I'll be honest, and I remember it being more tart than it is. And I think a lot of that is because you try some of the more modern beers that are kind of over the top with sourness, and you forget that the classic styles of this beer really wanted to balance sour. It wasn't about who would be the most sour beer in the world. It was about balancing it. And this beer itself has so much sweetness. I mean, there's tons of like sweet chocolate and sweet cherry that go along with the acidity. I mean, I can see somebody trying this beer and saying it's too sweet for me.
Yeah, and
in some ways.
Yeah, and I could totally see that for the simple fact that even one thing that you mentioned, it wasn't that, in my opinion, they were going for the most sour, they were going for the most complexity. So if anything, that does balance it. Like you said, you have your sweetness, and then you have, like one thing you mentioned, the tart cherry hits me like almost immediately up front. And it's just, it's such a good balancing act because in a way, obviously maybe not to the same level, but it reminds me, as someone who actually, I grew up as a bit of a wine drinker, it reminds me sometimes when you get a really nice dry wine. Like obviously this is a little more acidic than that would be, but it gives you some of those same like vinous, you know, notes that really lend to like, if you're having if I was eating like a steak right now, I would probably pair this.
There's tons of dark chocolate in there, and that gets that kind of sweetness going on. And when I said that some might say it's a little too sweet, not me, right? Yeah. I'm just saying that when you're talking about the sour category that people are expecting these days, you would call this a sweeter version of that. And all that complexity that comes from the fermentation, from the malt bill, like a good dark malt bill, and a sour beer, which we don't see a lot of that either very often. It's just incredibly complex. It can pair with tons of different styles of food, whereas a lot of sour beers, you really are kind of pigeonholed of where you can pair them. This, I could see this going with a lot of different, like heartier meals, not just, you know, a salad with a poppy strawberry vinaigrette, which you pair most, you know, lighter sours with.
Yeah, and my thing is it doesn't pigeonhole itself because it's not overwhelming in the way that like this is a sour. You get everything you want in a great sour, but like you could still taste other things. Or some of these, because they're like, how much adjuncts can I put in it? How much fruit, whatever. And it's just once it's wrecks your palate. This is kind of meant to be enjoyed, and you can tell it's not meant to be just like blow you away in the way of like, well, we'll give you a visceral experience, but you're not going to enjoy anything else afterwards. This is meant for hanging out with friends or family and really just people who enjoy beer and just having kind of a conversation like we are and just, you know, living it up.
What a wonderful thought. Yeah, every time I take a sip of this, I taste something different. And I may not be as overwhelmed by the tartness this time or the sweetness I'm picking out this time. Now I'm getting all the malt flavor there. Now I'm getting some subtle strawberry notes that are underlying in the beer. What a wonderful beer. So glad that we grabbed this one and cracked it open. And I'm looking forward to our event, and you know, this is coming up tomorrow, and I'm hoping that we get some good sours to try, and we hope to have some natural, some wood age, some natural fermentation sours we're always looking forward to having. So guys, thank you for joining us for Old Favorite Friday. Please click on any of the other links around us on this YouTube channel. You'll see tons of other conversations about other great beers, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.